sent letters to Ruby, who would forward them to her. Perhaps he was just busy, she concluded. It had to be nerve-wracking, feeding a military camp full of hungry men. Helping in the restaurant, Charlotte was only beginning to appreciate the challenge of preparing mass quantities of food, especially when supplies were often unavailable and food was rationed. The store window displayed a decal showing 3 Canadian soldiers saluting. "Do your bit. Back us with your money," it read. "Buy Made in Canada goods." Behind the lettering was a Union Jack with a yellow maple leaf in the center. Charlotte put her thoughts aside as she pushed the door open. Inside, she found the needed items easily. In the dry goods section, where she'd gone to pick out a spool of thread, she was drawn to some ready-made baby clothes. Tiny nightgowns, flannel receiving blankets, and knitted sweaters were on display together. She allowed herself the luxury of running her fingers gently over the little garments, savoring their softness. Then, with a deep sigh, she squeezed her eyes shut a moment, then moved quickly to the counter to pay for her items. No sense thinking about what was not to be. Someone else would be swaddling her baby. By the time she returned to Mrs. Marshall's, the sun was high, and she was damp with perspiration. She laid the bag of items on the kitchen table and poured herself a tall glass of water, then sat down at the table to drink it. "Took you long enough." Mrs. Marshall stepped in from the dining room, carrying an armload of faded white curtains. "Drink your water, then get started on those front windows. I'm going to wash these, and when they're dry, you can take them down to the Red Cross. Soon as they're on the clothesline, I'm going to stitch up the new curtains. This place will be looking right spiffy when we reopen." Charlotte pulled the window cleaner out of the bag, gathered some rags from beneath the sink, and pushed her way through the curtain that separated the kitchen from the dining area. Trust Mrs. Marshall to pick the hottest day of the year to wash windows. At least the windows were still on the shady side of the building, for now. A knock at the kitchen door stopped her. She paused and held the curtain back to watch Mrs. Marshall open the door. A man in a clerical collar stood on the other side, hat in hand. "Reverend, I didn't expect to see you so soon," Mrs. Marshall said. The man nodded. "Hello, Maggie. May I come in?" Sure." He stepped inside, and Mrs. Marshall looked over her shoulder. "Go on about your business, Charlotte," she said. "I want those done before lunchtime." "Yes, ma'am." Charlotte let the curtain fall into place and began her task, telling herself she didn't care about the conversation coming from the kitchen. "Have a seat, Reverend Fennel." Maggie placed her load of curtains on the counter and waved a hand toward a kitchen chair. Part of her wanted to tell him he was a sight for sore eyes. "I guess you heard the news already." "I did." "I meant to call you. It's on my list." Maggie sat down across from the man, trying to remember the last time she'd seen him. His dark brown hair and eyes were just like she remembered from their teen years, but the spindly adolescent had matured into a well-built man. "Word travels fast. I thought I'd come by to see how you're doing and offer whatever support I can." "Well, that's very kind, especially since I haven't been to church. Well, at least not to your church." "Maggie, that's not what this is about. Just forget all that. How are you?" Maggie hung her head. "It's hard. As you know, we married very young." "I remember." Maggie had attended Sunday school with Reuben Fennel when they were both youngsters at the small church he now pastored. Her parents were faithful members, and as a child, she'd had no reason to doubt any of the teachings about Jesus and God she'd learned there. But after Douglas Marshall came into her life, it was all too easy to slowly drift away from the little corner church with the white clapboard walls and get swallowed up in the large one Doug's family attended, with its fancy stained glass windows, pipe organ, and steeple. It was there that Maggie had walked the long aisle in a gorgeous white dress.